Alright folks, so we're going to look at another Gary Taubes video and be blessed with some of his deep breakthrough wisdom that so many love out there. And let's look into some of this mumbo jumbo. Here, one of the things that I've brought up in a lot of the videos is if carbs make you fat, how come so many Asians out there are lean as hell? And he has his little way of trying to address that, and we'll see in the end how that just totally does not add up, that a high carb low fat diet will make you fat with what his little ideas are. So here we go.
Basic question is, I'll phrase it the way it's usually phrased, what about those Southeast Asians who live on low fat, high carb diets and don't get fat? And one of the fundamental issues here, and actually this is partially why I wrote the sugar story in the New York Times a couple weeks ago. Basically, in the beginning, I showed you populations that ate high-carb diets that were very poor and were fat. And then there are populations, the Japanese, the Koreans, the Chinese, elsewhere, the Catawbans who eat high-carb diets and aren't fat. And what's the difference, or is it not the carbohydrates? And again, what I'm saying is the high glycemic, high refined carbs and the sugars. And if you look at the populations that don't get fat, they eat effectively very little sugar. So the Japanese, for instance, in the 1960s were eating the amount of sugar that we were eating in the 1860s.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it there because it just kind of goes on with elaborating that these Asians never really adopted the habit of eating sugar much, these lean Asians, and that it goes further back. From what I recall too, he also says that they never adopted that, so, you know, like genetically they don't easily get an insulin response from carbohydrates, so that's why they can get away with eating more carbohydrates than let's say Western people that have been exposed to more sugar. Okay, now let's look at this clearly. All he did here was he said that not eating sugar has to do with why they can take in more carbohydrates. Okay, now please recall that these healthier high carb diet, high carb low fat, let's say like mcdougall or pritikin or ornish, all these diet gurus do not advocate eating sugar with these diets. Okay, so the sugar issue is not a smart angle for him to take, because the Ornish, mcdougall type diets do not advocate eating tons of sugar. Okay, and the idea that it's because the Asians never really adopted that, and it's, you know, they have, like, you can, I guess, put it like a more genetic advantage to be able to consume more carbs because they're not as sensitive because they never inundated themselves with sugar. Okay, that's just a theory. Okay, that does not prove itself in terms of if a Westerner were to go on a healthy low carb diet, meaning complex carbs, healthy starches, things like that. Okay, brown rice and even potatoes, yams. That does not prove that a Westerner couldn't go straight away into, let's say, an Ornish or a mcdougall diet of complex carbohydrates and not have any problems. This is a theory that he's come up with, okay? And all the evidence proves that he's absolutely wrong. Because when people do that, let's say an Ornish or a mcdougall diet, high carb, low fat, about 80% carbs, 10% protein, 10% fat, they do just fine jumping right into it. And even, for example, mcdougall actually is a big promoter of potatoes. So you can get, you know, your average American that will, let's say, work with him in one of his programs and eat actually a lot of potatoes, and they have no problem dropping fat, improving cholesterol, reversing diabetes. Same thing with Dr. Neil Barnard. These are all people that have proven results. Esselstyn, Barnard, mcdougall, the Pritikin Center, they are not having problems with Westerners jumping right in to a high carb, low fat diet. None whatsoever. There may be a tiny percentage of people that are extra sensitive, okay, to sugar, even fruit. There's a small percentage that are sensitive to eating excessive fruit. Doesn't mean they can't eat any fruit, but having more than probably 4 pieces of fruit a day, some people are a little triggerable there, and in those cases, it's advised they maybe have 2 pieces of fruit a day, spread out, not close back to back, and even after a while, even that balances itself out to where they can easily be consuming about 5-6 pieces of fruit a day. Okay, so nothing he says adds up. His theory that it's because the Asians never were sugar consumers, blah blah blah, all his insulin theories just do not add up, because we can see that through many things. And I had shown in another one of my videos that, for example, there's this Kempner rice diet, okay, and it's something that has proven to make people healthier, and it's not, I'm telling people to run out and do this, that's not the point of this, but it is a very high carb, low fat diet, and I believe when the Dr. Kempner started it, it was even with white rice, and cholesterol levels improved, heart disease was reversed, and people lose tons of weight on it. You can Google it, and I've discussed a gentleman, and this would be the obvious results for most people, a gentleman that went on a 20 potatoes a day diet. Okay, 20 potatoes a day, so that's high glycemic. Okay, and he even shows his blood tests. As a man named Chris Voigt, 20potatoesaday.com. The guy had phenomenal results. So there's just no solid evidence proving that his insulin theories, and because Asians never adopted eating a lot of sugar, that they can get away with eating more carbs. That all that does is screw people up in adopting a proper diet that should be more high carb, low fat. Okay, so as I keep saying in many of these videos, the Asians are evidence that high carb, low fat works, and there is not an exception. There's not a genetic difference. That's all nonsense. More than anything, they are proof that eating a healthy diet of high carb, low fat is the way to go, and the body responds favorably to it. Okay, so another video where he has been debunked left, right, and center. So thanks for watching, and again, folks, some of you that are disputing this, slowly try to pull the head out of the anus. Try, please, okay, and adopt a healthy lifestyle. Best of luck.